Now we're going to take a look at some of the highlights from The Wind Cries Mary. One of the highlights is certainly the intro, famous intro. It sounds like this. So here we're starting off with an E flat chord. It's actually an E flat with B flat in the bass. So what we're going to do is we're going to play on the 6th fret of the low E string, 6th fret of the A string, 8th fret of the D string, 8th fret of the G string. So here's the E flat, and we're going to put B flat in the bass. We don't have the 3rd of the chord, so technically this would be an E flat 5 chord. What we're going to do now is we're going to take that same chord shape and move up chromatically from E flat up 1/2 step or 1 fret to E, another 1/2 step to F. Now we're going to answer these 3 chords by playing the same 3 chords, but this time with the 3rd in the bass. These are inversions. Sounds like this. So here's how this works. We learn the E flat chord. What we're going to do is take this E flat, put the 3rd of the chord in the bass. The 3rd of E flat is G. So I'm going to play G here on the 10th fret of the A string, and then I'm going to bar on the 8th fret of the D string, 8th fret of the G string. And to get to that chord, I'm going to hammer on from 8 to 10 on the A string. Play this same exact riff up 1/2 step or 1 fret, and then do it again up 1/2 step or 1 fret higher. So what we've done is we've played E flat, E, F with the B flat in the bass, with the 5th of the chord in the bass. And then we've played the same 3 chords with the 3rd in the bass. Here's the E flat with G in the bass, E with G sharp in the bass, F with A in the bass. So if we put that together, the riff sounds like this. And then we repeat. And before the verse comes in, there's going to be a little single note fill. So we're going to play 10 to 12 on the A string, 10 on the D, strike that again, hammer on to 12, back to 10, 12 on the A string, slide off. And that'll give us the intro. So let's put that all together now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take a look now at the verses for The Wind Cries Mary. The verse is a 2-bar chord progression consisting of 3 chords, C, B flat, and F. But in true Jimmy style, he improvises around this basic chord progression to make these chords really come to life. So I want to show you some of the tools, some of the tricks he does to make these chords really sound interesting. One of the things we can do is if we have a C chord, we can take that idea that we learned during the intro and put the 3rd of the chord in the bass. So this C chord could become C over E. That means we have a C chord with E in the bass. It's a first inversion of a C major chord. So here I have the 7th fret of the A string, and I'm barring on the 5th fret of the D, G, and the B strings. Now, while we're here, there's a lot of other things we can do. If you can think about the C major pentatonic scale, what we can do is we can bar on the 5th fret, and we're going to strike 2 strings at the same time. These will be double stops using the C major pentatonic scale. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some hammer-ons. I'm going to strike 2 strings and hammer on to the lower of the 2 strings. So strike the A and the D string, and then hammer on to the 7th fret of the A string. So I'm barring on the 5th fret, strike the A and the D, hammer on to the A string 7th fret. Sounds something like this. That's something that will always sound cool with that C chord. We can do the same idea on the next pair of strings. So if we take the D string and the G string, we can strike those 2 strings on the 5th fret, hammer onto the 7th fret of the D string. And we can do the same thing between the G and the B string. Strike those 2 strings on the 5th fret, hammer onto the 7th fret of the G string. So now we've got all of that to work with. So rather than just sticking with a plain old C chord, we can take this C, 3rd in the bass, play some double stops using the major pentatonic scale. Now, one thing Jimmy does during this song, when we go from C to B flat, he plays a chromatic note. He plays the B on the way from C down to B flat. That's another good trick you can use, chromaticism. The 3rd and final chord of the verse is an F chord. Now, quite often, Jimmy would play an F chord with his thumb on the F note, 1st fret, low E string. And the rest of the chord would consist of 3rd fret D, 2nd fret G, 1st fret on the B string. And then we can also throw in the 1st fret on the high E string. Now, the advantage of playing the chord in this fashion is that we can do some hammer-ons and pull-offs that we would not be able to do if we were to play a regular old F bar chord. So one thing we can do is if we play this F chord, we can lift off the middle finger and have the open G string. So we can hammer on and pull off and just improvise around the 2nd fret and the open G string. That's a great sound. Using our 4th finger, we can also add the 3rd fret on the top 3 strings. So we can play on the 3rd fret on the high E string, on the B string, and also on the G string. So that gives us a lot to work with. Sometimes Jimmy would even play this riff around the F, working with the bottom part of the chord. Simple little riff, works great. Play the 1st fret of the low E string. That's the F note, that's the root note. Slide from 3 to 5. And then play the 3rd fret on the A and the D strings. Now, another chord we can play, we don't want to forget about the plain old simple C major chord. That can always sound great as well. And we can use that same idea where we use some hammer-ons and pull-offs with the C chord. So if we take our middle finger where we're playing on the 2nd fret of the D string, we can lift up, hammer on. That can sound great. We can even add the 3rd fret of the B string if we want to. Okay, so let me try and demonstrate how we can put this together, because every time Jimmy plays this 2-bar progression during the song, he plays it slightly different. So I think it would be kind of crazy to try and learn the entire song exactly like he played. I think it's better to take the tools that he was using and try and create your own riffs. So you could end up with something like this. Here's the verse. 1, 2, 3, 4. So have some fun experimenting with those different inversions and extensions that we're adding to each of these chords. After the verse comes the chorus. The chorus consists of G, B flat, and then back to the intro riff. Sounds like this. So here we're playing a G chord with the thumb on the root note G, 3rd fret, low E string, followed by 5 on the D, 4 on the G, 3 on the B string. And we're going to do this hammer-on and pull-off from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret and back on the B string. So here's a G chord. If we put the 4th finger on the 5th fret of the B string, the name of the chord is G6. Then Jimmy does that same idea from B flat. So move the same chord up 3 frets to B flat. And then we play the intro again, E flat, E, F. Repeat the G to the B flat chords. E flat, E, F. And then same 3 chords with the inversions, with the 3rd and the bass. You should be familiar with that by now. We learned those chords during the intro. So here's the chorus. Play along with me now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the chorus. All right, it's time to take a look at the solo. This song has 2 distinct sections to it. It's almost like 2 separate solos. What I want to do is show you the chords that he's soloing over for the first section, and then we'll learn the solo. So we're going to start off F to E flat in the first measure, B flat to A flat in the second measure. That 2-measure phrase happens 3 times. All right, so there are the chords for the first part of the solo. And here's the first line of the solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. A lot of double stops here. Starting off on the 13th fret on the top 2 strings, I'm then going to hammer on to the 15th fret of the B string. Now I'm going to play 12G, 13B, leave 13B alone, play 14G along with 13B, back to 12G along with 13B, so the middle finger doesn't need to move. Now grab 15 on the D, back to 12G along with 13B. Learn that part well, it reoccurs many times. Now we're going to strike 12G along with 13B, and then we're going to hammer on to 14, pull off to 12 on the G string. Now grab 15 on the D, shift positions, 10, 12 on the D, 10, 12 on the G. And now we're going to hammer on 10 to 12 on the G string and then pull off to 10. The next line of the solo sounds like this. So all of those double stops that I just played, this much of it, we've already learned. All those double stops are identical to the way the solo started. This little bluesy stuff that follows is slightly different, so I'm going to show you that part of it now. 10 to 12 on the D string, 10, 12, 10 on the G, hammer on 10 to 12 on the G string, hammer on 10 to 12 on the D string. Okay, so here's the phrase we just learned. This is the second phrase of the solo. All these phrases start on beat number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Here's the third phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Very similar. The first idea, the initial idea with the double stops is identical. So this is the third time that we've played this exact same double stop phrase. And then the single notes, 10 to 12 on the D string, 10, 12 on the G string, hammer on 10 to 12 on the D string. The next part of the solo is the second section. So let's go back and review what we've done so far. Play along with me. We start on beat number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Now we're going to take a look at the second part of the solo. Here we switch keys. Let me show you the chords first. We'll have a bar of G, a bar of B flat, a bar of D flat, 2 bars of F. And then we're back into the verse. So here's the first phrase of the second part of the solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this idea is played over a G chord. We're going to play on the 15th fret of the top 2 strings, hammering onto 17 on the B string. Back to 15 on the top 2 strings. 14G along with 15B, 16G along with 15B, back to 14G, 15B. So far we've done this. Now grab 17 on the D. Now strike 14G, 15B, and then hammer on to 16 on the G string and do that phrase twice. Now this section that we're learning starts on the and of 1. So it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. The next idea is being played over the B flat chord and sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this section starts off with a B flat chord, played 8 on the D, 7 on the G, 6 on the B. Strike that chord, strike it one more time, and then hammer on to 8 on the B string. Strike the chord one more time. Now play 8 on the D, 7 on the G, hammer on to 8 on the G string. Strike the 8th fret of the G 3 more times, followed by 7 on the G. So the whole phrase would sound like this. We start on the and of 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. The next phrase is played over D flat and sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we start off with a whole step bend from the 12th fret of the B string. Then we'll strike 12 without the bend, followed by 9, also on the B string. Now bend a whole step from the 11th fret of the G string, followed by 9 on the B, 9 on the high E. Now bend a whole step from the 11th fret of the G string, followed by the 9th fret of the G string. So the whole phrase would sound like this. 2, 3, 4. So the last phrase is played over the F chord and sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So starting off with double stops, 13th fret on the top 2 strings, then hammering on to 15 on the B string. Back to 13 on the top 2 strings. Now play 12G, 13B, 14G, 13B, back to 12G, 13B, followed by 15 on the D string, back to those double stops, 12G, 13B, 14 on the G, 13 on the B, back to 12G, 13 on the B. So far we've done this. And we end with a single note line, which sounds like this. So this is 10 to 12 on the D string, 10 on the G string, 12, 10 on the D string, 13, 12 on the A string. Okay, so let's go back and pick it up from where we started soloing over the G chord, the second half of this solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so there's the solo for The Wind Cries Mary. Let's take a look at another great part for this song, which is the outro. There's going to be 4 sections to learn for this outro, and the first section sounds like this. And in context with the chorus, it would sound like this. Okay, so more double stops here. Starting off on the top 2 strings, we'll slide from 8 up to 10, back to 8. Bar the 10th fret on the D, G, and the B strings, and then we're going to hammer on to 12 on the D, 11 on the B string. And then back to 10 on the same 3 strings. It's actually an F chord to a B flat chord back to an F chord. The second part of the outro sounds like this. So we have the chords that we learned during the intro. E flat with G in the bass, moved up chromatically. And then we're going to follow this with a little bluesy run. 12 to 10 on the D string. 12, 11, 10, back to 8 on the A string. Here's the third phrase. We're going to play E flat, E, F, followed by some single notes. 8 to 10 on the low E string, 8, 10, 8 on the A string, 10 on the low E. And here's the final phrase. So here we start off with the intro chords, E flat with G in the bass. Move that up chromatically. Now we're going to strike the 8th fret on the top 2 strings, hammer onto the 10th fret of the B string. 8th fret on the top 2 strings, 10 to 8 on the G string. Top 2 strings now, slide 8 to 10. Strike the 8th fret on the top 2 strings. And then our F chord, B flat chord, back to the F chord. So that final phrase once again. Now let's try and put all of this together. We'll take it coming out of the last chorus. Try and play along with me now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there you have many of the highlights from the Wind Cries Merry, and you know, as always, have fun with it. And don't forget the pick flip.